Julie Livingston with Want Leverage Communications, a public relations and LinkedIn consultancy, helping to raise executive visibility and credibility. I run PR Patter, my weekly or semi weekly show where I interview the great minds from across my marketing and public relations network. If you like what you see, go to my website at wantleverage.com and download my free tip sheet, How to Make Your C-Suite Stand Out on LinkedIn. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome an algorithms and data structures engineer, Max Cherefant,
Right.
who has contributed his expertise to renowned organizations, including NASA and Apple, before dedicating his efforts to the Med Shadow Foundation, which is a client of mine as well. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Vanderbilt University and a master's in computer applications from Yale. Welcome, Max. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, you know, you may have read, it's been a bit under the radar as we discussed, Max, right? But
Mhm.
hopefully, a lot of people have read about the widespread Google search leak that happened recently in June,
Mhm.
which really kind of turned the SEO world on its head.
Mhm.
So, can you tell us in a nutshell what this meant and
Well,
why it's so important and why is it under the radar?
it, I, you know, I've been trying to figure this out for a while. So what's essentially happened is there's been a massive algorithm leak with Google, and for a while we were trying to confirm. Engineers, data engineers, were even trying to confirm, is it real? So we first wanted confirmation, but when you start looking through the data, you realize this is an actual leak. It has proprietary systems in it that give you all the information that you need essentially about what Google's operation on the back end is. Now, if you've played in the SEO field, it's always been a mystery to us. Like, maybe Google wants us to do this. Maybe we do this. The best example is cooking blogs. They're the prime example of what Google is looking for, but then all of them look the same, but it's always been a mystery. So now, going through this algorithm leak, we're seeing the things that we thought they didn't care about, they do actually care about. And the
Uh,
things that they told us they don't care about at all, sometimes they're using that as their primary metric. And it has completely changed the landscape. And the problem is nobody even knows it happened. Because if you can't read code and if you're not on GitHub, in most cases, it's completely just jumped over you.
Wow. So I know that following the Google leak, Apple held its annual worldwide developers conference in mid-June. What came out of that? Because I know they've gotten more into the game because they own so much of the smartphone market.
So as of right now, what's happened at the Worldwide Developers Conference is, so every year Apple gives a preview as to what's happening on their software side, not hardware, just software. So we get a preview for the new versions of iOS, Apple TV, iPad OS, Mac OS, and any other pieces of software that may support these devices. So maybe Final Cut, things like that. But it's essentially designed to help developers make better applications for the iPhone. And what they also do during the Worldwide Developers Conference is they release APIs. And APIs are application interfaces, and they allow you to tap into certain applications. What makes this very difficult for SEO is, so Apple owns about 67% market share for smartphones right now. And the problem that we're going to see is, at the Worldwide Developers Conference, they announced something called Apple Intelligence. Now, for the world of SEO and AI and everything like that, that's the buzzword that everybody's seeing.
Right.
Apple Intelligence is going to affect SEO in such a way, because think of it this way: you have 120 million users with an iPhone.
That's all?
And and
Oh
and
my God.
And if you look at that number, it may seem small in comparison to how many people are on the planet, but think of 120 million users no longer going on the internet. That it's going to take some time to register, but 120 million users no longer hitting your website. no longer going to get that click for you or going to see your recipes, because what Apple Intelligence does is it scours the internet for you and it brings the data directly to the user without them ever having to visit a website. Meaning those things that you used to rely on, that page click, that advertising visit, that impression view, you will not get anymore, because these users will get it straight through Siri when they ask, hey, what's the best recipe for macaroni and cheese? And it says, here's what I found. And it brings it straight to your interface and you never have to go to a website for it. That's going to be a major problem. And ever since this leak came out, what we've noticed is some of the major players have lost almost 66% of their traffic.
Whoa.
It's
That's
a
a lot. That's a big loss.
it's a major loss. And some of them have kind of decided that we're going to use different avenues, because Google is no longer working for us. And people have lost their trust in Google because if you search on Google now, you'll be met with something called the AI overview.
Oh, it's so annoying.
It's terrible because it's not trained well. And with large language models, or AI, that's what they're typically called, you have to train them. And when you ask Google a question and it tells you that it's safe to put glue on your pizza, most people lose confidence in a search engine like that.
Yeah, and you can't get. It's not easy to get rid of. For a layperson like me, it pops up on your screen, and then you can't. You have to take a whole other process, and clicks to get to the regular Google. It's very irritating and distracting.
Very, very
Um,
much so.
So, on this podcast, we often talk about raising executive visibility and the importance of thought leadership in making leaders stand out in their industries, uh, by sharing their thought leadership. And so, I wanted to ask you about, thought leadership in a new SEO world and the kinds of things that people can do to make their thought leadership shine and stand out in other ways.
Yes, that's a very good question, because when we look at what the promise always was, right? When you're looking at search engine optimization, is that Google's always promised us that if you allow us to rank your stuff, we will get you traffic. And that's always been the exchange that we have. And now leaders in these spaces are having a difficult time figuring out how to move forward in a space that's very gray right now. We're expecting a new algorithm change. So my recommendation before this algorithm change happens is to make sure that your content on your website is contextual and that it links back to other content on your site. We've known in this leak that Google loves that. They love contextual data. And that's why they pull almost 80% of their data from Reddit, which is a huge thing that nobody even knew. And when you look back
Wow.
at it, it makes sense because everything on Reddit is contextual. It's moderated, it has sub channels for particular content. And when a person asks a question on Reddit, they, in 9 times out of 10, get an answer.
Well, that's the thing that's fascinating because
Mhm.
honestly, Reddit wasn't really on my radar. It's not a platform that I've really been using in promoting my clients' thought leadership. But you're saying that we shouldn't bypass Reddit at all because it is like an amazing conversation starter.
It is the biggest conversation starter as of right now, because pulling 80% of your data from Reddit, and like I said, it makes sense because, and I'll use this example, someone on Reddit can go on a sub channel, particularly for that what they're speaking in regard to, let's say shoes, for example, and they want to find out if this particular shoe fits small, big, or true to size. They can ask that question on Reddit, and other users who've also purchased that same shoe will be able to correspond and answer, hey, I bought this shoe in this exact size. The leather's soft, but it takes a while to break in. You should go down a half size because it's not really true to size like the website says. That's every question that that person asked for. And if not more, that's the best way to get your results. And when Google discovered this, because Reddit is essentially a large forum, they just started scrubbing Reddit.
That's fascinating. So how do you start getting vocal on Reddit? Just you open an account and you just
I would tell anybody, if you have a business, you should have a Reddit channel. a subreddit channel. Um, because Reddit is so moderated, you can't just jump on Reddit and start commenting and linking back to your website. That's why Google loves Reddit, because they don't allow that. It has to be within context. So I'll use this example. If you go inside of a forum about cars and you try to plug in your website that's about vacation travel, it will be removed. The moderators will take it out. You would have to post that into a subreddit channel that's about vacation travel. And that's the beauty of Reddit. Nothing is out of context in a sense. And so I always would recommend, in this new space that we're playing in, before this new algorithm change happens, get a subreddit channel, have people discussing on your subreddit channel, and try to start as many conversations within your subreddit channel, because that will allow users to find you, because Reddit is really good with ranking too. And I highly recommend creating a subreddit channel for any small business, because if you're relying on Google for 100% of your traffic, at some point you're going to miss the mark.
Wow. What about other search engines like Bing?
As of right now, I think most people think that Google is the only player. Some people don't even know other search engines, and I highly recommend using Bing and other search engines, hyper-contextual search engines, to provide more data to your website. Reason being is Bing is great. Most people know about Google and they know about Search Console tools, but Bing also has something called Webmaster Tools. You can just as easily integrate your site with Bing as you can with Google. But most webmasters completely skip over this, because Bing hasn't been a popular search engine. Like, even the name, nobody says, let's Bing it. Nobody does that.
Right. Google is part of the lexicon, right?
Exactly. Most people, when they want to look up something, I'll Google it. It's become part of pop culture almost, in a sense. And that happens when there's consistency in people using something. So that can easily happen for Bing. And I don't like the term AI, because AI is not, it's not true. AI stands for artificial intelligence, and none of these things are artificial intelligence. I just want to make that clear. They're either GPTs, which are general platforming transformers, or they're LLMs, which are large language models. All of these are just data sets. You provide it a large amount of data, and it will spew data back out. Perfect example for this is a large language model will know the shape and dimensions of your Toyota Tacoma, and it will also know the shape and dimensions of the IKEA couch that you want to buy. So if you were to ask the question, will this IKEA couch fit inside of my Toyota Tacoma, it can easily give you the answer yes or no, because it knows how big the back of your truck is, and it knows how big that couch is. There's no magic happening here. It just knows the data, and it's trained on that data. That's all we're seeing here. AI is not magical artificial intelligence. It's not like the movies. It's just data that we feed it. And that's the important part. It has to be fed on real data that real users make. And so AI doesn't work unless there's data being spewed into it. So it's almost a catch-22. And that's the most difficult part of where we are. It's like this blurred line limbo. But I wanted to make that clear, because I know the term is so buzzy, AI. And there's no magic happening here. It's just data. And we've had data for a very long time.
What about social media? Just to promote your thought leadership.
Social media has been, I'm sure everybody kind of realizes this, social media has been a wave storm. We have a new platform, well, two new platforms on the block now. One of them I wouldn't consider a new platform. It's a pre-existing platform. It was once Twitter, now X, with new ownership by Elon Musk. If you use Twitter and were successful on Twitter, I'm sure you've noticed that Twitter's become a lot more difficult to market. They've closed out their API. They've charged huge amounts of prices for it. So I typically would remove X from the equation for most people. If you already have a large following on there, purchase their Twitter Blue or X Blue, because they've shown that they will lower your reach if you don't have it. And it's now this game that they're playing. I recommend Blue Sky, which is a new platform that was released last year from the previous co-founder of Twitter. He didn't like the way Twitter was going, so he created a new platform. has
Really?
millions of users. Yes, it's called Blue Sky from Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey was the co-founder of Twitter.
Right.
When it was sold to Elon Musk, he saw what was happening and decided we still need a platform where people can speak freely and are not being controlled. So he created Blue Sky. Um, Facebook is never going away. I know people don't trust its privacy metrics and things like that, but it's never going away. Facebook is a gem and its advertisements still work very well. If you're not on Ad Espresso for Facebook, highly recommend getting on it and using Facebook ads and marketing to your benefit. And lastly, when it comes to social media, um, Instagram still is king. You
Yeah.
know, it's everybody is, we look at TikTok and we look at Instagram, and those are the two players that most people are trying to figure out, where do I invest my time in, because they're very similar. They both offer stories, they both offer a lot of the same platform themes. I always recommend Instagram. Instagram has become almost like email. People don't change their email address. They keep it as long as they have it. And with Instagram, most people will just deactivate their account, but they'll come back. And for marketing, it's a lot easier to grab reach on Instagram because it's associated with Facebook. And as opposed to TikTok, which I think is owned by a Chinese company,
Yes.
sponsored by SoftBank, which we don't know what they do with that data anyway.
Right.
So I highly recommend those three platforms as your primary breadwinners, because, and if we're counting Reddit as a social media platform, and we said this previously, get on Reddit. That is one of the best social media platforms / forums, in a sense, or message boards, people will call it. Do that. It will help greatly.
Is Threads anything?
No, it's too new of a platform. And Threads, what I've noticed is it's optional, right? Users can turn it on, but most users are just like, I have Instagram messages. What
do I need that for?
Exactly. If I need to contact my friends, I'll just leave an Instagram post or reach out to them via messages. But there was a huge boost in Threads at its inception, where almost 6 million users signed up because of all of the changes that were happening on X. And Mark Zuckerberg capitalized on that. But ever since then, the user base has dropped because people are not using it.
Yeah, I never see it being talked about really
Not
as
at
a
all.
driver.
And it doesn't have a great feature set. So the whole driving of social media is to be social. And people don't realize that the winning in social media is getting users on your platform. That's what they all care about, is we want users. And Threads just it's not gonna work at this point. You lost that momentum. They need another driver, or it's gonna fall apart.
So in terms of thought leadership, I would say that Instagram is a wonderful platform for video and for photos of thought leaders sharing their thoughts and opinions and ideas on things. Really brings them alive, and shows their human side. It's just so powerful. And then,
Yes.
of course, there's LinkedIn, which is a phenomenal platform for showing your industry credibility and leadership through your thoughts and opinions. And it's only growing. I think there are like 200 million users now around the world. So talk to us a little bit about the future of hyper-contextual search.
Oh man. So
do I have an hour or two?
Yeah,
Just give us a snapshot.
I kind of hope everybody buckles up for this one, because it goes to show you how long this has been in play. So the future of hypercontextual search, and for those who don't know what that necessarily means, any search engine, Google, Kosa, Bing, those are all hypercontextual search engines. And it's even scary to talk about. Let's just go back to 1997. All right, when the founders of Google wrote their initial transcript of what a hypercontextual search engine would be. And in a small portion of that document, Sergey Brin, in a nutshell, said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that he believes that the future of search engines would at some point be focused more on the advertiser than it would be on the user. This was in 1997, before Google was founded. This was their initial transcript document to open up Google. Years later, we're seeing this manifest in real life, where we're realizing that Google is not really a search engine whatsoever. And anybody who thinks it is, you're being fooled. Google is an advertising platform. And they've made this more clear than ever with their latest moves in their C-level space. They fired Ben Gomes, who was the head of search for Google for a very long time. Genius man, like one of the brightest minds I've ever met. And they replaced him. Just hold on for a second. They replaced the head of search with the head of advertising.
Interesting.
So this goes to show you the direction that Google is going in. And this was a recent change. So he's now on the throne, about to take the helm for the foreseeable future of Google as the head of search. But his whole focus is on advertising. And we can almost feel these changes happening in real time, where you're being advertised more on Google than you are anywhere else. And another thing is, we can tell that Google is focused on not bringing you to websites anymore. This is why this AI overview exists, because how do advertisers make money? By time on page. The more time you spend on a page, the more money that advertiser makes. So it's Google's incentive now to keep you on their search page. So how do they keep you on their search page? Making your results worse. And when your results are worse, you spend a lot more time on that search page with all those advertisements fishing for the right answer. And it's almost like we used to call it's this thing that people believe it's a myth in tech, planned obsolescence, which is not a myth. Tech degrades it away that you have to buy a new one. You know, batteries are made in a particular way where they die in a certain amount of time.
It's like the fashion business.
Exactly. And so this is what we're realizing, is that if you think Google is a search engine, please change your thought process. It's an advertising machine. And these AI overviews and these new changes that we're seeing with Project Gemini are just a huge step in that direction. And if you didn't believe it more than ever, then to replace your head of search, who is a brilliant engineer who helped essentially create the backbone of this search engine, and replace him with the head of advertising who has no experience in data analytics as far as that's concerned, it goes to show you what direction that we're going in. And if you're using Google as your primary source for gaining traffic, I highly recommend that you look at other options.
That's really fascinating. That's a great insight. So, what should small businesses do in terms of SEO? What's the target roadmap for them, do you think?
For small businesses, it's already hard because they need to have a lot of grounding on the internet. And I'll kind of give you the key. Google's focused on branding. Small brands, new brands that are coming out now, trying to create websites, it's going to be way harder for them. If you're already on the internet, have a website, and you have a domain authority of over 20, you're sitting pretty city right now. I would say work on your brand recognition. Make sure that Google understands you as a brand. Work on your schema. Make sure that every source within your website connects to other sources. I don't know if you're in the SEO world, you've heard of canonical links. Make sure that your articles are canonical and that you're linking back to them as, this is the main one and this is the one I want you to rank afterwards. Make sure that your sitemaps are in order, that it's easy to read the code on your website. If you have a whole bunch of jumbled code on your website, get an engineer to clean that up for you. Because the harder it is to send web crawlers through your website and your business, the harder it is for you to be recognized as a brand. Those are just the small changes. Create a presence on social. Now, everybody tells you this, right? But I believe that Google's no longer focused on big influencers, because big influencers typically don't answer any questions. If you've noticed, even Instagram is going in this way. Micro influencers who follow a particular niche and have a small fan base within that niche, but they will do anything that influencer says because they know that influencer is well versed on that particular topic. You need to show your experience as a small business And most small businesses have a huge advantage because they've been operating for a long time. It's just nobody's seen them. Um, I would use those things to your leverage. As much as we want to put things out on the internet, get great reactions, brand recognition and understanding how your brand is going to operate as a whole conglomerate on the internet, which is different from in IRL, right? On the internet is how you can essentially form that pattern that Google will recognize and start to say, this is a brand we know, this is a brand we respect, this is a brand we rank. And that's really the whole gist of it. And come September, which I'm kind of doing a future prediction here, but that is the release of the iPhone, right? And another big part of this is I believe a lot of people will upgrade this year because Apple has made an incentive for them to upgrade because Apple Intelligence doesn't work with anything except an iPhone 15 Pro or higher. So if you have an iPhone 14, in most cases, you're going to want to upgrade. We're going to see the algorithm change for Google most likely in September, which gives us roughly about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So I would say the shakeup's going to happen pretty soon because once this iPhone releases, in most cases, Google will have to change their backend because they never expected us to know about Nav Boost. They never expected us to know about Twitter. So these are systems they never expected us to know about. But with this algorithm leak, and I kind of want people to understand as a small business how major this is because this document allows you to reverse engineer the internet. That's how important it is. You can recreate the internet with this document, this 2,500 pages of algorithm leaks. So as a small business, focus on your brand. Make sure the internet understands that you're a brand. If you do not have a info box on Google, get one. And that is something you can easily apply for as a small business. Make sure they recognize you. And that would be my best advice to any small business because I don't want small businesses to drown. I don't want small blogs to drown. I feel like we need editorial now more than ever. And this is a very important.
Right, including thought leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Max, this has been such an insightful conversation. Your insights are just so fantastic and razor sharp. Thank you so much for making the time for us. Everyone else, please feel free to reach out to Max on LinkedIn. And